Good evening and welcome to the Guitar Gear Locker. I'm Roger Sutherland, and this is my co-host this week, Richard Clark. We're going to try to tag team this while Alex is out of town. Alex is probably on stage right now in Brazil performing with Immolation. So, so they have a 2-week tour. He's going to be gone for a couple weeks and maybe 2.5 weeks, something like that. So at first we were just going to kind of not do anything for a couple weeks, but just kind of keeping the momentum of the channel up. We figured, Alex and I were talking, and we know you had a list. We were kind of just talking about this, and and you even said you had some gear you wanted to show last week. And Alex said that to me the other day. We were talking on the phone, and he said, I think he had some gear that he wanted us to see too. And I said, I started thinking about it later. I said, well, maybe we'll ask Richard to come on and see if we can do this thing with a special co-host for the week. So, and you were nice enough to oblige us in that and come on. So we appreciate that. We appreciate you being on, and it's great having you.
Yeah.
And then everybody won't have to sit back and listen to me pontificate the entire night. And we have, I'll throw a couple of the comments up. Hopefully we'll get some people that join us, because we did say we weren't going to do it last week, so maybe some aren't expecting it. That's Nick Roshan. He was on with us last week. He actually texted me earlier, and I guess Alex gave my phone number. He texted just to make sure we were going to be on tonight, so I'm sure we'll have him in the comments. Trouble is somebody that is he comes in here into my shop. He's a local player here. He said someone different, and he's very observant, as you can tell.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. So we have a packed night of interesting topics, I think. And if time allows, we'll go over some of the guitar stuff that's going on in the world. But you had a couple great ideas of talking about, and I'll be like a fish out of water. So some of this I'm just going to soak in. So we wanted to talk about pedals, overdrive pedals, maybe miking cabs and speakers and things like that. So I'm going to shut up for a second and let you take over.
Yeah, I mean, since I got like heavily into gear, and specifically with tube amps and for high gain tube amps, there's this two different schools of thought. Is like, do you use an overdrive pedal in front of your amp or not, or do you prefer modelers? And I don't personally feel like there's a right or a wrong answer there. Like, so much in music comes down to what your preferences are. Other people will tell you there is a right or a wrong answer, but I really don't think there is. And that's something I think is cool, and I definitely would love to, if we got folks listening and commenting, I'd love to hear their thoughts too. Right. I like both. Normally I go more towards using an overdrive pedal, and I guess the good place to start is, what is it doing to the sound of your amp? A tube amp, when you dial one in, the easiest thing for me to do is to put the EQ settings on the amp pretty much at noon, and then add your overdrive pedal, and like with a amp like a dual rectifier, right behind me, it's got a ton of low end in it, which I haven't watched this, but my guess would be that was an intentional design thing, geared towards saturation of your guitar sound, just to make it sound super full. But it wants to be EQ'd, and that's what gives you that. If you're a metal player and you're really into you're going to be really into defined rhythms and rhythmic percussive sounds and such like that. So you need something to chisel away at that tone and make it a lot more defined, which is what the overdrive pedals do. So
now, is there a so how much overdrive, how much distortion is too much? How much is enough?
I do think there's a right and a wrong to that one. So yes. I think too much is generally not going to be great, especially in a studio environment. You can get away with a little bit more in a live setting, and you should probably, but like in a studio setting, it's just going to really muddy things up and make it not nearly as defined.
Right.
So, but yeah, I personally prefer to have an overdrive pedal. And then you get into things about how much level do you want to use on the overdrive pedal. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was like to talk about, do you like overdrive pedals that are simple, like some of the one knobs things that are starting to come out now, or some that have their own designated EQ. And personally, I like ones that are just a one knob thing, which basically means that the pedal that you're putting in front of your amp is like a fixed EQ type thing. So when you put it in front of the amp, its EQ is set, and then you're dialing in whatever tone you want, which is another, big personal preference thing from the EQ settings on the amp. So,
Okay.
But I mean, so that's the difference. You'll have pedals that've got a ton of different dials on them, or you'll have real simple pedals. And I always go for simplicity.
Right.
So
let me throw a couple. I'm not going to try to keep breaking up your flow. And everybody in the comments, I'll throw them up like every time there's a little pause. You've seen the PV6505 is really good for deathcore and heavy metal. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 6505 is basically when Eddie Van Halen left PV, they wanted to keep making that amp. So they rebranded it. It's literally the 5150, but they rebranded it 6505. So it's an awesome amp. And, so is the 5150, like the PV version. I don't know. I don't have as much experience with the PV version as I do with like what you and Alex use. But yeah, they're both awesome amps.
Right. And the Croatian, hey, I saw your text earlier. I did tell him one of the ideas I had was, and somebody kicked this up last week, was having my wife on to talk about the goofy things that she's heard come. So when I told her, she didn't think it was a good idea. As a matter of fact, she just said no. Yeah, I thought it would be kind of funny if she would just jump in for a second, but my wife is pretty shy. The Croatian says like the Boss pedals. That's earlier when you were talking about that.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of them in front of me. I was going to kind of like talk about a couple of them, just as an example, if you want me to.
Yep. Yeah, let's go ahead. And Trouble said what you said makes a lot of sense now. So that's good.
Yeah, so I mean, that's my favorite pedal. That is the Pepers Dirty Tree pedal.
Okay.
And it's two pedals in one. If you're a super gear nerd like I am, this is the TC integrated preamp, which I think Meshuggah had used that a bunch on their early albums. And when you flip the switch this way, that's TC. So you get access to level, high end and low end, basically. So it does have a little bit of EQ on there. I don't use it in that mode very much. I like the DT mode, which is the Dirty Tree mode, which is literally just a fixed EQ and level. So you put that in front of a amp like a Mesa Dual Rec. I mean, it's just, they're like a match made in heaven. You get just an awesome gnarly metal tone for rhythm.
And I'll make sure everything we talk about, I'll link in the comments so people can read it. That'll be tomorrow though.
Yeah. And I have messaged him a couple of times. He's I think he's out of Australia, and that pedal's gained a lot of visibility in the past 5 years. Right. I think. And it's, if you listen to our albums in Among These Ashes, this is the tone, our rhythm tone on our last album is literally a dual rectifier in this pedal and the 412 I have behind me.
Okay. So, all right. Nice.
Yep. So yeah, I can keep talking about a couple pedals if you want, or.
Yeah. Well, let's go through, and then I want to kind of, circle back at the end, because I'll talk about a couple that I have and some things that I'm trying to do. I don't know if they can be done, but you mentioned, more buttons, fewer buttons or knobs. I am definitely fewer. Sometimes I don't like to be sitting around, and I'm not recording, obviously. You're recording. I know you're looking for a specific sound. A lot of people that watch are recording. I'm just playing, and sometimes I don't want to get overly involved in playing with too many knobs and buttons and things like that. I just want to get it dialed in and play it.
Yeah, man. I think you know, tonal paralysis is probably the word that I would use to describe what too many knobs does to you as a player.
Right.
So if you have too many options, you're never going to decide on something. And that's the thing. You got to be able to make a decision. And there is, sometimes I feel like when you talk about simplicity, it's almost frowned upon, but I think the exact opposite. I think it's important to simplify everything, especially when it comes to this stuff, and a one knob type of thing goes a long way for me.
Right.
And I guess as a player, I never used to care about tone either. And then I got so into it that I started to become inspired by it, and it would make me want to practice just because I would enjoy to hear the richness of the tube amps and everything like that. And literally enjoy just playing it got me to the point where I was like, okay, I'm really enjoying practice now. And I'm looking forward to it because of you add this element into your practice regiment that is just appreciation for the gear.
Right. And Necrosian says simplicity is the key. Yes. I agree. So is there now among these ashes and the other projects that you do you find that you gravitate towards one pedal or multiple pedals, or does the song kind of dictate where you're going with this, or whether you even use an overdrive pedal?
For me, when we're recording, I'm probably always going to use an overdrive pedal.
Okay.
That said, like when we first started and when we were talking beforehand, I don't think there's anything wrong with not using it. But I really enjoy trying different pedals. And as far as overdrives go, I've tried a lot of them. One thing I guess I would tell people if they're going to check this out, most overdrives are the same. It's really hard to find something that stands out. And I guess, one thing that makes a pedal stand out is how feature packed it is. I think this is probably a good, I want to show you this one.
Sure.
I just got this pedal. So this is that new Mike Fortin 14 pedal. And it's basically like 3 pedals and 2 different, I haven't even really, I don't know how to describe this because I haven't played that much on it yet. But you've got 2 different channels on here and 3 different types of pedals, and they all have their own unique tonal characters. So that's, to me, that's cool. I like that because for $250 you get a lot of stuff in one pedal. You know, and it does a lot of stuff. So
now, what would you say? Necrosian's he's liking what we're talking about so far. So. I mean, would you say that, so I kind of look at distortion, and I'm pretty narrow-minded with this. So, you kind of have your harsher distortion pedals, and then you have like your tube screamers. So kind of your heavy metal, and then your Jimi Hendrix, if you will. Make sense? That's kind of the way I look at it. So does the pedal that you just held up, does that kind of maybe get both of those worlds?
Yeah, I think there's a lot you can do if you just dial it in the right way. So I think you could get a very not high gain tone out of something like that if you just kept the level down on the pedal.
Sure.
So, and one other thing I did want to bring up along those lines is you don't have to have an overdrive pedal to get an awesome tone. To me, if you don't want to use an overdrive pedal, you're basically just going to be using more extreme EQ settings on your amp. So basically dialing out a lot of low end and some of the mid range, and then dialing up more of the presence in the high end on the amp. You're going to kill our tone.
So so I guess there's kind of 2 schools of thoughts and there's people listening, and there's people of all different experience levels watching. So, I kind of try to address all those. So you can address your overdrive or your distortion levels by either pushing it through the amp or setting everything, like you said, sort of at noon, if you will, and then pushing it with a pedal.
Yeah, and I will
two schools of thought, right?
Yeah, definitely a couple of different schools of thought, and like I said, none of them's right or wrong. So much of it comes down to preference. And after I always just say that the noon thing, that's the starting point.
Right. Yeah, and I was just kind of using that as a reference. Like I use noons and numbers as just reference points. So if you hear a higher number, it just went up. And trouble hang out, because I think we're going to talk more, like when we get through the pedal portion of this, we'll go into more of the effects, because that's what I'm seeing more as a trend with the younger players coming in here, especially. And Trouble's one of the younger players. And the Croatian says your amp in an active pickup helps.
Yeah,
definitely.
That would be another awesome topic for another show, is just active versus passive. You guys might have already talked about that. And I think we did the first time I was on.
Yeah, we can talk more about that. Maybe that's a next week topic. Yeah, active and passive, and I wind pickups right back there, so we can go over some of that if you want.
I'd love to.
Yeah, so go ahead. Didn't want to disrupt your flow again.
Oh no, man! Please, we're just having a conversation.
You would just BSing now.
Yeah. The other thing is I haven't done too much of this, but just a EQ pedal. I mean, because that's essentially what the overdrive pedal is doing.
Okay.
And like something like this has got a little bit. I haven't used this that much because I get intimidated by it because of how many bands are on here. Like that's a lot. So trying to actually know what the heck I'm doing on it, I don't. Like that's why I like the Mesa stuff. They're basically a 5-band, and most of the time you're going to set it to a V, and it's got a level and gain on it. But this is the other thing you can use if you don't want to use an overdrive pedal. And honestly, it gives you a little bit more access to to basically developing a total character that you like.
Right. So. Right. And that kind of, so that helps you really dial it into the minutia, right?
Yeah. I mean,
like if you're looking for a specific sound, you can dial in any frequency range you want with the EQ.
Yeah. And the other thing, if you're recording though, is that it has to work with your mix as well. So usually you need a lot more mids than you would expect. When you're playing by yourself, you might dial a lot of that stuff out and it might sound super awesome to your ears.
Sure.
But if you have too much high end and not enough mid range in what you're recording, the guitars are going to sound bad in a full mix.
Right. Right. Okay. Makes sense. So yeah, go ahead.
I think that for the most part, that probably covers down pretty good on the overdrive stuff. Yeah, like I said.
Now, which do you prefer? Do you prefer getting your overdriven sound from the amp or from a pedal?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's an awesome question. I like the way the pedal EQs the front end of the amp and adds a little bit. So I will usually keep the level pretty low on the overdrive pedal so that most of the sound is coming from the amp. Otherwise, it's not really a tube sound. It's more of a pedal sound.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, and I know Trouble's wanting us to talk about the effects, and I do want to get to that in a couple minutes. But now, so I think that I have kind of like two ways I don't know how to. So with overdrive and amps and how I like to listen to music, how I like to play music, I'm finding that I'm kind of bouncing back and forth with my playing. And some of that is like you can only play so loud with your wife, trying to tolerate it in your house, So I've kind of moved to headphones for the first time in my life in like the last 2 months. But when I see music, and I was kind of curious to see what your preference is. So when I'm out listening to music at a live venue, I think it's venue dependent on what I like to hear. Like I like the tube amp and the power of the amps and the speakers kind of hitting me in the chest when I'm at larger venues. When I'm at smaller venues, I kind of appreciate people that are playing through the effects, whether it's a helix or, a fractal or whatever, because they don't have to get it as loud. And I'm talking about smaller venues. And then I got to be honest, there's some venues I just won't see live bands because, they make my ears bleed. I'm too old for it. Years of sirens.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like the digital stuff is so good now that I can't even really tell the difference in a live setting. Like
Okay.
it's just amazing how
Right.
far that's come. And
Yeah.
it sounds just like a tube amp.
Right.
When it's live and in a full mix like that.
Right.
Like I saw Metallica in Detroit a couple of years ago, and they use what the heck do they use?
They're fractal, right?
Yes, fractal.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it sounds incredible, and a lot of the bands that come through. There's a club in Detroit that has a lot of death metal, and a lot of the bands are using like the quad cortexes and stuff like that, and
Sure.
they just sound amazing.
Right.
So
I have a fractal. Of course, we've talked about. I have an EVH, the baby brother to the big one that Alex has. I have the 50 watt, and I like it a lot. But there are some times where, like, I have a ton of presets in my fractal, and I have the older fractal where I just like to sit down. It's like, okay, I'm playing this song. Let me hit this button and sound like that song, rather than kind of dialing things in. So I like that also. But again, like out seeing bands, like you said, sometimes you can't tell the difference. Like maybe the punch you in the face part is a little bit different. But if you're out at a smaller venue, I mean, sometimes some bands will get it just a little too hateful, I think. Like they don't know,
yeah.
and they can't really keep the level down. And I've been to other ones where they get so loud that the venue is asking them to turn it down nonstop, and they think there's like a master volume for the band. So it just drives everybody a little nuts. I'm sorry.
I think it's definitely easier to tell the difference out of a mix, between digital and tube amp. Like the tube amp has just got this, it's got grit to it that I don't think you get from digital sounds.
Right.
And like that grit and that bite is something that I really like. And yeah, I think you can get really close with the digital, and the only one that's going to care is other guitar nerds.
Right. Yeah, I've heard some guitar guys saying, well, this, that, and other. It's like, nobody really cares.
Yeah. Well, even that, like, I don't.
If it sounds good.
I don't pass judgment on that at all. Like some people, a few people will, but most people won't. Like a lot of everything that you do has to come down to, does it sound good or not? Don't overthink it.
Exactly. Let me kick out a couple more comments. I do want to give a plug to our local School of Rock and all schools of rock this Saturday. If you're in our area, Fredericksburg, Richmond, DC, Strange Ways Brewery, they do a good job at packing venues. It's small venue, but you get a lot of people in there. So Necrosian said the EVSL. Yeah, so I have the I think I said it last week. My wife said I'm no longer allowed to go over to Alex's and play because I went over and played his 100 watt and it sounded great. And I want to ask advice from you since you're more of a pedal person and I'm trying to accomplish something with this. So I have the 50 watt Stealth. I bought it. I love it. It sounds great. And pretty much I noticed with that. So I had an orange amp and I've since gotten rid of that. So I've gone to the EVH and, you have your clean channel, the blue channel, the red channel, and, you can get what you need with that. There's stuff that I have a big muff that I run on the front of it. So there's different sounds that I'm trying to get. The one that I'm finding, so I love all of those. I love the 3 channels. They all sound great, and it's fun to play with, play through. The thing that I'm having a challenge, and some of it is like sometimes I don't have the time to sit down and really dork around with these things. Like I try to play an hour or 2 a night, and after I've wrenched on guitars all day, I don't necessarily feel like setting down and dialing things in. So that's some of mine. And the Croce said, "Yeah, you're going where I'm going here." He said, "You don't need a pedal." He's right. So, and he could probably help with this also. So, I like hard stuff, but I also like Hendrixy stuff and Stevie Ray Vaughan and things like that. So I've always been used to, tube screamer in the front of the amp. And, I've tried it with this, on the green channel, getting a super clean and then trying to work the tube screamer on the front of it. And I don't necessarily, and then Alex and I tried to go on the blue channel and just use the blue channel without a tube screamer. And you can get close with that, but you can't really get that kind of that stratty sound that you're looking for. What I think you almost need the tube screamer. So what's your advice on that? I mean, the Stealth is it sounds awesome clean. Like it's a great clean sounding amp. But it can get super raunchy.
So first of all, I love that amp. That was our first album. That is the amp on that album.
Yeah. Right.
I wish I still had it. I have the Iconic right here right underneath my dual rack, and that's a really nice amp too. But I thought that the 5153s just, I don't know, they're better. Some people will say the Iconics are better, but I think the Iconic is like a combination of solid state and tube, where yours is just straight up tube. So that amp has just got a stupid amount of gain on it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you're going to be struggling with, is like, I think trying to go from like more of a light distortion thing to clean. Light distortion is what you're probably targeting.
Right.
And like, heavy, like it's almost kind of like that thing that has no in between. It just goes.
Yeah. So would you, in the Croce, he's let me catch up with his. I don't know what his Me Too was in reference to. Sometimes when they're commenting, they come in a little later. So we're past it. I forget what we were talking about. So, and the Croce can help out. He said pickups have a lot to do with it. So when I'm playing, so usually it's active, and then it depends, PAF, whatever. But when I'm in particular trying to get the stratty sound, usually it's either the ones that came in my custom shop Strat, or the other one if I'm playing like an E flat tuning for the Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix, it's a set of my pickups that I made, which are usually to the 64 spec, Fender spec. So yeah, they're passive. They're 64 spec, and then I overwind the bridge a bit, to get a thicker sound on the bridge. So that's what I'm using. And then, I didn't know if the better approach would be to do it on the blue channel, which is, a little lighter on the gain and the distortion, try to get it to just break up a little bit on that, or on the red channel with a tube screamer.
I wouldn't try the red channel if you're going after Hendrix type tones. That channel is just like a fire breathing.
Did I say red?
Yeah.
I meant green.
Yeah.
No, not red. I meant green. In my head, I said green.
I would go on the green channel and probably just play with the gain a little bit too. And like the comment about the pickups, I agree with that as well. Like I went through a period where I was super into like super low output pickups, even though I was playing metal, and then I would get the gain from the amp. So if you've got an active, I mean, I know you know this, but like it's going to be pushing the front end of the amp quite a bit. So you might not be able to achieve the level of distortion you're after just because of the active pickup. And you might want to try a low output Single coil. Is it a humbucker or a single coil?
No, single coil.
Yeah.
Yeah, just single coil pickups.
Yeah. Okay.
So and that's you're not talking about high gain, and I think so. My problem is when I get things like the fractal, for instance, I the fractal doesn't operate in real life like it does, like it should in my head. Like it should do something totally different in my head. But what I'm trying to do with the EVH is I don't want a bunch of amps. I'm not the guy that wants 10 amps all over the place. So I think what it's going to come down to is I'm either going to have to live with getting close to that sound, the Hendrix sound, or just playing it clean with a Strat, which sounds good. Don't get me wrong, it sounds good, but if you're trying to get that sound, which trust me, I'm not going to sound like either one of them, right? That they're in a league of their own. But if you're trying to get close, it's probably better to go with the fractal and just get their preset in there. So and do that. So, but I'm just trying to do it all with one rather than having 5 amps out here that I don't need. More stuff sitting around. I find the more stuff I have setting around, the more attention it draws with my wife.
Yeah, I mean, man, like you can do everything you want, or at least get close to it, like you're talking about with 1 amp. Like the reason I have more than 1 amp is just because I like it. You know,
right, and I've been more into the guitar side than the amp side. I usually just get an amp that I like and stick with it for a while. And I have pedals, but I've never been a big pedal person. Like I've tried I think the Crocia mentioned the Boss earlier, and I tried that, and I have to tell you, I really didn't like it. I use a OCD, full tone OCD, and Tube Screamer, of course, Big Muff, and then I have some other things. I have one that's really weird. I forget what it's called. The Slow, SLO. I forget who makes it.
It sounds like Soldano, probably.
No, I forget who it is, and it's right. It's always so hard to think of things when you're on a podcast. If I wasn't trying to think about it, I know it. But it makes some really interesting sounds that I kind of got that when my daughter was playing. I was like, okay, it makes cool sounds. She'll be into it. So, all right, let's see. Trouble has, my mouse runs fine all week, and I get on this pod. I think maybe it's a streaming software. He wants to get EMG 5766 pickups. You know who is a big fan of the 5766 EMGs is Alex. He had those in one of his guitars. He likes those a lot. His Jackson. Oh, it's a Jack King. I got it. That really clean pedal that you have. Oh yeah. So Trouble? What's it called? You can look it up real quick. It's SLO. It's blue. I can't. Oh, and it's like a pedal maker too. I can't believe I can't think of that. So if he comes up with it, we'll throw it in there. He can Google it. He has time. All right. So next subject. Did you want to go into? Trouble mentioned the different effects. Did we want to touch on those really quickly?
Sure.
And in particular, he said line 6, the neural DSP and head rush. I'll be honest. So I have had dealings with the Helix, and of course I have a Fractal. I have a lot of people that I'm friends with that have the FM9. I have the AX8 Fractal. I was getting ready to try the Quad Cortex, and I've talked about that on here before. I just getting ready to pull the trigger on the purchase, and I looked it up and I said, I don't know that I have time to do all that dialing in right now. That's for later down the road. So what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think amp sims don't enter the conversation as much as they should, because they're awesome. They're freaking amazing. Joey Sturgis, Neural. I forget who makes I forget the guy, but he's got a replica of an MLC amp. I think they're made out of Poland, and it's just killer. And whenever I'm tracking guitars, I run everything through a DI box into my interface, and it's all just software on my computer, and they cost like $120. You don't need to go buy a Quad Cortex or any of that stuff that costs like $1,800. Get yourself an awesome amp sim for $120, and play your ass off on that, because they're incredible.
Well, I want to come back to this. It's the Walrus Audio SLO Reverb multi-texture pedal. And he's right. And he said that was a mouthful. It is. That's why I just called it SLO. He said that was a mouthful of words. Thanks for doing that. That's what it's called. What I notice is, when people will come in and they'll play on my rig out here, and they'll hit that pedal, and everybody that plays to it likes it, except for me. I like it, but it's just it makes some interesting sounds. I'm sure there's a place for it, but I haven't found it yet. But I do have that one. So I told you earlier, recently I discovered, and Alex also, it seems like a lot of my customers, especially younger, I think Cody Trouble does this also. They play with headphones, which I had never done. And then they're using a lot of amp sims. So I downloaded a couple. I downloaded a JCM or their version of the JCM 800 and an exact replica of the Stealth, just so I could play it in the headphones. Because like I said, I come down to the basement. I play every night, and it would get a little loud. So I think my wife kind of appreciates it now. Like, I can have it pretty loud, but it's contained. Like if she came downstairs, she would just hear strings plucking. But there's still times I like to play through an amp or like to play through the Fractal. But to your point, like, you can really, I got it on Stupid Deal of the Day, the Amplitude.
Yeah.
And you can literally do anything with that. So it has all kinds of pedals. And they pretty much look at, like, I could replicate my pedal board out here. It has all those pedals, whichever cab, whichever speakers, mics, positioning the mics, all of that. You can get in the rabbit hole as far as you want to. Yeah. And the Croatian said, watch you don't hurt your ears. So, and he's right. And Fractal is the same way. So when you go out and you start downloading off of Fractal sites, those different patches, they aren't all recorded at the same level. So I've learned to take my headset off as I'm switching to different patches, different sounds, because sometimes you will blast your ears out just hitting a button. It's a good point.
I've always, over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been using an attenuator between my amp head and my cab, to get the crunchy amp tone. The amps want to be turned up to get the cranked tone, but at a lower volume. So I don't know. I would recommend trying that out. You can get that 2 Notes. I think, what is it, the Torpedo or the Captor or something like that. That's not that expensive, and it'll take it down 20 dB.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I need to try that. Well, I mean, so I'm making it sound like this isn't a Roger problem. Roger just turns it up too loud. That's some of it. But I think I learned too late in life that you can do these amp modelers, amp sims, and how authentic they sound.
Yeah.
At least in a set of headphones.
And it's also a little bit easier to play along with when the sound of your guitar is coming out through speakers if you're playing along with something.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
Like whenever we play live and I'm getting ready for it, I usually will just play through my amps anyway. And my cab faces towards this side of the room and my speakers face this way. So it's a little bit of a battle. But if you're playing through an amp sim and playing along with something, it's all coming through the same sound source. It's a little bit easier to play along to.
All right. He uses earbuds straight from his amp headphone jack. Yeah, and I do that with my Fractal sometimes too. I run it through a mixer and then out with distortion and overdrive for some reason, but I still can hear the difference of the presets. Yeah, and this is just, depending on what I'm talking about with the presets is the patches that you download. So depending on who's downloading it, they're doing it at different volumes. So when you're switching, not between the presets in the patch that I'm using, but if you're switching in different patches, and I know somebody that did damage his hearing doing that, and he's using a Fender Mustang LT25. He said, "All right, so where do you want to go now?" It's been fun so far. It's been very educational.
Yeah, man, I love talking about this stuff. I mean, I genuinely just really enjoy recording, and amp sounds and guitar gear. It's like a whole nother dimension of music,
Yeah.
So, and I'll get to what you want to get to, but I mean, like, that was a maturity thing for me. And I don't know, for some reason during COVID it hit me. Maybe it was just having time, but listening to music for more than just like the songs and listening to it for elements like what we're talking about right now, like production aspects. It gives you this new element of enjoyment for it when you listen to it for stuff like that. Like, I had for the longest time shunned Metallica and then just like found this new love for them, and specifically like the Black Album. I was always like, I don't know, angry about that. I was like, this album's too dumbed down and simple. And then I started listening to it again at an older age, and like the album is like so well produced, and the sounds, like the guitar tone on that is just this incredible tone. And like, I don't know, when you put music out to the world, especially like the metal world, and you get a little bit of criticism back, it makes you a lot more accepting of other people's music.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I peeled back that onion more and yeah, just started to listen to it with different ears, I guess, more mature ears.
Now, would you describe how would you describe your music? What genre?
Melodic thrash metal, melodic power metal, thrash metal.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You said that last week. So it seems like there's a lot of, and I said this last week, I'm pretty dumb when it comes to music, I guess. I'm finding, but I was doing other things in most of my life. But I thought death metal was just death metal. I didn't realize there's like so many subgenres, and and hell, at one time I may have just called it all rock. But I also never, to your point earlier, it seems like I never really got into original music until actually it was Alex that mentioned, hey, let's do some recording and let's do some of that. And it seems like, and I guess it's sort of like when you get a blue car, like then you notice all the blue cars on the road kind of thing. Yes. But now it seems like every time I talk to somebody, they're recording, and it's like, holy crap, like have these people always been here? I had one in here today and he's recording his own music, but there's a lot more tools for doing that nowadays too.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's an awesome topic. That could be a whole show itself, but I mean, like, the technology's there to be able to do it pretty cheaply. Yeah. But like, it's still hard. You have to like, you have to be self-reflective enough and just know what, like, oh, hopefully I don't have too much compression on this, or hopefully I don't have too much of one thing. Like for me, the most important thing is always making sure the levels balance, so that one element's not too loud. But like, that's the other thing about okay, yeah, you've got access to all this self-recording opportunity,
Uh-huh.
but when it comes down to mixing it, that's
Yeah.
where the real challenge is and everything.
Right.
So,
Well, we have Necroshin. I love how he always corrects his typos. Too many cover bands today. Well, there's been too many cover bands forever. Um, but I guess unless you're really into this, you don't realize that there's so many original bands out there. Like you all have been in this world. This is new to me. With people writing and I listen to people, especially I say this a lot after we get done on here and I click the stream off, then I hear even more talking and it's like, wow. I mean, these guys are talking about how they do things and as just a regular person, you're like, wow, writing an album, that is just so beyond comprehension, but it seems like now it's almost attainable with all the tools out there. Speaking of recording, I'm trying to find a band that plays metal looking for a lead guitar. This isn't Craigslist, Cody. Jeez. Hey, if anybody in the area is looking to join a band, Cody's looking. I've seen it. I hope you get some guys. There's a lot of good guys around here. And the Crochet said typo. Yeah. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I like to keep these in here, keep everybody involved, and before it gets too outdated.
man, don't apologize. We're just having fun, having a dialogue.
Yeah.
I mean, like the other, I guess, tone rabbit hole besides overdrives and such like that is, guitar speakers. If you want to talk about that a little bit, I don't know if you and Alex have covered down on that before.
We have not, and I got to tell you, I felt like a friggin' idiot when I bought my my Stealth, I was kind of depending on the store where I got it. I'm dealing with them online. Hey, what do you think? What matches best with this? And I got the EVH 212 cab, and to me, it's like I say, I wrench on guitars. I don't really get into the minutia of which speakers you have and which this and which that. And then somebody came and they said, it would have been better if you had these speakers. And I was like, damn, I didn't even know that was. I guess I knew it was a thing, but I never really cared. And I figured when you buy something, it's like, well, obviously, if I buy a car, I need tires, right? And I need the right tires for my car. So I'm thinking as the layman in this, like, all right, you know what I'm buying? You know what amp I'm buying? Like, what cabinet speakers do I need? I already told you what I was looking for, like, size-wise. Wasn't looking for a 412. So it sounds like maybe they underpowered my speakers a little bit. But point, go ahead.
Sorry, you just bought the regular EVH 212 that comes with the amp head.
Correct.
I don't think they underpowered your speakers or anything like that. I think
not for what I'm doing now.
Yeah. The only time this crap really matters is if you're recording or you're playing live.
Sure.
If you're doing a lot of what you've told me, like you're doing, you're gonna get where you want to get, and it's not a big deal. And I've played through those EVH cabs. I haven't played the 212, but I have played the 412, and I like them. Right. They kind of get a little bit of a bad rap, but I think they're fine. Right.
Well, and I guess the point I had is, and I know there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down with guitars and tone and this and that. I just didn't realize everything associated with guitars had a rabbit hole. Cabinets and speakers and mics, and so that's why when you said you wanted to talk about speakers and mics, that really piqued my interest, because I was like, those are things I could learn about, and I'm sure there's people watching that could also, or that will watch.
So, and I could talk a little bit about that, because I've tried a bunch of different speakers, and everybody says Vintage 30, and I agree. I think that they're really good, but Mesa Boogie specifically gets their own voiced version of it. They make them in England and they make them in China, and I will definitely tell you the ones made in England are a lot better.
Yeah.
So, and I've tried, like when you talk about metal and the different speakers that you would use a vintage 30 is the one that always comes up, and with dang good reason. The other ones that come up now are, you're talking like DV77, which I've tried that as well. The Jesus Demon speaker, I've tried that. You know, DV77, I didn't end up liking that as much as the vintage 30s. And then the Jesus speaker, I do like that one, but I still think the vintage 30 for me is the better one. The Jesus speaker has got a very, very unique sound to it, which I think is cool, because most of these new speakers that are getting pushed out to the metal community, they're all just copying what vintage 30 is doing. And I thought the Jesus one really had a unique tonal character to it. It just sounds like an awesome, badass, old school thrash speaker to me. You know, like just straight up 80s thrash metal. So yeah, those three. I'm trying to think of what else is out there. I've got I picked up a new cab on Sunday locally, and that guy had Warehouse Reapers in it, which I had never tried before. But they sound really good too. So yeah, I see the comment about Celestion. Yeah, I think that just Celestion is really the manufacturer for speakers, you know. And you know, the other thing you could try to get that Hendrix tone you're going for is a different type of speaker, like the greenback. I think would probably be more up your alley. That's a really cool rock speaker. And I've used that before and really liked it a lot. I don't think it works as well for metal though.
So yeah, it doesn't sound like there's an all-encompassing speaker.
Vintage 30 would
doesn't sound like there's an all-encompassing anything related to guitars.
Well, a Vintage 30 or a Celestion Creamback, yeah, probably a Creamback would be an all-encompassing one.
So let me ask you this: like it seems so Celestion and some of the other ones that I've heard you talk about, why don't they just automatically put these in the cabs that people seem to be switching them out to me? I don't know that to be true, but it seems.
Well,
the question said it's your preference. True.
Mesa exclusively uses well, not in all their cabs, but almost for the most part, like their 412s are going to be a vintage 30, English made, or like a Black Shadow, something like that. And they, if you go on the Mesa website, you can see all the different speakers that they actually make. But I think some of the other amp manufacturers and cab manufacturers, like your EVH, it's an AVH speaker in there, and they want to put that in there. Marshall, I think I don't really know a whole lot about Marshall, but I'm sure they're using like Marshall speakers, or maybe they are using Celestions.
Well, I feel better now. He says there. I hope he's talking about the EVH killer speakers.
Yeah, he might mean the Celestions.
Oh, okay, that wouldn't be good then. At least for me. Celestions, yeah.
But I mean, Eddie Van Halen was he was a super smart guy when it came to sound as well, you know. And I'm sure, you know, like if Alex was on right now, I'm sure he would say the same thing. Like he knew what he was after, and it came down to everything from his amps to his cabs to his speakers and his overdrive, because he's got overdrive pedals as well.
Yeah, and I hear people that say a lot of good things about those. I think with me, I've gone down so many rabbit holes with guitars and pickups and, you know, this and that I've kind of held myself back from getting into the, you know, the cabs and the speakers and the mics and the pedals and all. Thankfully, I've kind of held off from all of that. But I think it's one of those, especially like you said, if you're thinking about recording, it's probably somewhere where I'm going to end up one day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would keep that 212. And the other thing you could try, you know what you should do one time is take that take your amp head off and put it on a shelf somewhere and turn your 212 vertical, because you will get a different sound that way.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Because I had a 212 and we played live one time, and we just decided to turn them. It was smaller, so we both brought 212s. So we decided to make them vertical, and they sound killer like that.
Right.
There's something about the proximity effect. Like if your speakers are closer to the floor, and it's the way your ears perceive the sound. It just gets a little bit. It captures a little bit more low end that you would want to hear. I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it, but yeah, give that a shot one time.
Yeah, definitely. Now you wanted to talk about mics also, right?
Yeah.
You really did want to get nerdy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like I said, I really enjoy this stuff. So, and if there's anybody else listening now that knows, or anybody that looks at this show that knows as well, I would.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know this shit that well. Like, I know it pretty good, but I always love to hear other people's opinions and learn from them as well.
Well, and I think this is what this is all about. Like, you can't be a complete subject matter expert on all things guitar, amp, speaker, and all that. And that's kind of what we try to do on this, is just get discussions going and just, well, first of all, it's just kind of nerding out, as you know.
Yeah.
But you get discussions going and get other people's ideas. It's not necessarily any ideas are right or wrong. So, except for my wife tells me a lot of mine are wrong. So, and I just say, yes, ma'am.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like, as far as mics go for a heavy tone, or even not a heavy tone, everyone's going to talk about an SM57. And again, like the Vintage 30, for good reason. And I've grown to love that mic. It's $100 mic still to this day, and that will always be my number one mic. So the other thing that you talk about when you talk about miking up a cab is, do you want to use one mic, or do you want to use more than one mic? Where these days, I think one mic is good enough, and because you can start to get into issues with like phasing. With if this mic's too far away from this one, it's going to create an issue with when the sound is actually hitting the mic, and then same thing with how it gets recorded by your DAW.
Right.
So, but I think if I was to combine microphones, which is a cool thing to do, and I encourage anybody who's into guitar stuff to try that a little bit. My favorite combination is the 57 and a Sennheiser E609. Okay. And when I place the mics, I like to go with the 57, basically like right where the dust cap, which is the middle part of the speaker, meets the cone on the 57, and then put the 609 in a little bit of a darker spot on the speaker. So, and like when you talk about darker or brighter tone on a speaker, like towards the middle, brighter, away from the middle, it's darker.
Right.
So yeah, and it's all super important, and like a freaking quarter inch of a move can make a huge difference. Right. So yeah, those are my two favorites. I guess honorable mentions would be a Fathead ribbon microphone as well. Okay. Which is out there. And I've never actually tried the Royer 121, but everyone usually says go with a Sennheiser, an SM57 and a Royer, I think it's 121. But those are like, those mics are super expensive. Right. They're like, I can't even remember what they are. They're over $1,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Another rabbit hole.
Yep.
A money-sucking rabbit hole. Hey, Dwight Bailey's with us.
Heck yeah.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I've been watching his. So, speaking of somebody that does originals, he says hello, Rich. Also, He
I do.
does originals. Check out his channel. So yeah, he can appreciate probably everything you're saying, and I can see he's into that also. So what DAW do you use?
I use Reaper.
Reaper.
Yep.
Okay. So why do you use Reaper?
Because it doesn't really cost any money for a license, and it's an awesome platform. I mean,
Okay.
what you can do in that thing for what it costs is just incredible.
Okay.
So, and I guess a third reason would be I don't really feel like learning another software.
Well, and I like asking. I'm a question guy, as you can tell. So I had, and it seems I don't even know if it's generational. So if some people have seen this, so I started with PreSonus, so Studio One, and that's only because I had one here, and then switched to Focusrite. Remind me to talk about Focusrite because I had a little issue with that. So then that switched me. Somebody mentioned Reaper a couple weeks ago. So I started using that. So it's all brand new to me. So like switching doesn't really, I don't know any of them that well. So switching isn't a big deal. It's just another one I don't know well. So then Immolation uses, and Alex's other band, they use Ableton. So he and I are doing some stuff together. So we decided, I decided I would go Ableton just to be common with him, even though you can do file sharing and, it doesn't really matter what the files are. But I just wanted, like, if we're talking, we can talk, buttons for buttons kind of thing. So I had a younger player in here today, and he swears by Ableton, loves it. He thinks it's the best one out there. I found it really, not even knowing these very well, I found it very difficult and almost foreign when you look at it, because everything's laid out differently. And I know you can get, the horizontal layout, but it was still odd and different. Let's see what my guitar player uses Digital Performer 11. And that's a new one on me. I haven't heard that. Now, so what was interesting is, so I in the research that I've done, it seems like a lot of people use Ableton for EDM and all that. The guy that was in here today said he prefers that over Ableton over Pro Tools for recording. He was a drummer and he plays guitar. So for recording those, he likes those. And Necrotian, he said it's just like Pro Tools, right? There's so many of them out there. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like I guess it comes down to what do you really like though? Do you like the stock effects that you get from them, or what is it? Because at the end of the day, you're using it as a tool to record digitally, and a DAW, aside from the effects that you get when you get it, like, that's not going to change your sound or anything like that,
Right.
So like one is just as good as the other, with the exception to the effects that you get. And a lot of my effects that I use are UA Universal Audio. So I bought those and I built them into Reaper,
Okay.
And anybody can do that. You can do the same thing on probably any of those other DAWs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've been using Reaper for so long now, I don't know crap about any other software.
Right.
So.
Well, I did the little short time that I spent with Reaper, it seemed very easy. Like everything was kind of straightforward. If you needed to do something, it was just a couple clicks and you were rolling. Where this, I mean, anybody that Necrotian knows it, I struggled for a few weeks with Ableton. Just being able to double track or even hear the things that I was doing. I mentioned Focusrite. So I bought a Focusrite. Alex bought a Focusrite about the same time. Ordered it, came in, plugged it in, hit the ground running. You get all fired up. You get to do a little recording and all that kind of stuff, and jamming with your sims, your amp sims. And then I noticed. So it seems like mine, as long as it's plugged into the USB port of the computer, the lights would always stay on. It would always stay on. I would have to unplug it to turn it off. So I was doing something when I walked through out where I play out there, I noticed that the lights were on. I came back here and I was working on a guitar, walked back through, and I saw the lights were off on the Focusrite, on the interface. So I figured, well, I mean, maybe something changed. Maybe the power and the port, whatever. So the next day I came down, maybe it was that day, plug into it, dead. It was 3 weeks old, dead. No lights, no nothing. Hooked it up to a different computer, nothing. And it was bought brand new. It wasn't a refurb. Didn't buy it off, marketplace or anything. Came in the box, brand new. So I reached out to them, and they had me do the troubleshooting, which I had already done. Tried it on 2 computers and tried it in with a power cord, and that thing was dead, like DRT, dead right there. So I reached out to them. It took a little over a week, but I got a new one in yesterday. It was, the story of my life, I think. And I got it off of Amazon, one of their dealers. And I think I was 3 or 4 days outside of the return period with Amazon. So I did have to go through the whole RMA process with them. So, but yeah, it was odd, like brand new and just stopped working.
I think whom is that the name of the manufacturer, or is it Focusrite? Or is
I think so, yeah.
Because I think I had it must have been Scarlett Audio. Maybe I had.
Oh no, it was Scarlett. Yeah,
okay.
It's a Focusrite Scarlett, right?
I had the same thing happen.
Really?
Yeah, and the only reason this is insane of me. My normal audio interface is an RME Fireface, which is an amazing interface. Okay. And I sent that thing in for repair, and it was going to be like a week or two. And I was, like a coke addict. I'm like, well, I can't record music for
right.
2 weeks. I got to have something. So I just bought this Focusrite thing. I got that in for a little bit, and it died. And I was like, I bought it from Sweetwater. I just sent it back. They refunded me. I spent so much money with those guys that they don't really worry about me. So, you don't need, depending on what you're doing with an interface, you don't need a ton of inputs. You can get away with one.
Oh yeah.
So,
you don't need a ton of inputs, and you don't really need more than one, but it needs to work. That's important.
So I would say, that's another rabbit hole is preamps, and do you want to get standalone preamps, or do you want to use the ones that are in your interface? And what those things are doing is they're amplifying the signal of your microphone or your guitar.
Right. So
if you pay for a better interface, you're going to get a little bit of a better tonal quality and just, overall quality sound. So I think and here's my point is less inputs, if you're okay with less inputs, you can probably get a really good interface for a little bit cheaper.
Oh,
so I think, what is it? Is it Audient? I've heard my buddy Joe uses Audient, I think there, and he's really happy with those. And then RME that I use, they make a 2-input. It's called a Babyface. That's like $1,000, I think.
Right.
And you could probably get an awesome used version of that on Reverb for like $500 or $600. That's what I would get.
Oh yeah. Well, he said it. I don't think it was a return. It was in because usually they'll say refurbished, and it came in like a new box, marked new, and all that. I don't think it was a refurb. And not only that, I thought when they sent me a replacement, I thought for sure it would be a refurb, and it wasn't. And he definitely said 2 inputs, which I agree, because I think so. I like to do things, and I think Alex was kind of thinking the same thing. Like when for me especially, this is new to him, using the interfaces and Ableton and doing that, which I got to tell you, he knows recording, so he picked up on it fast. He sent me a recording that was phenomenal, that he had sat down and done one night just off the top of his head. But I think we were both thinking like, hey, while we're trying to figure this out, I mean, how many times in your guitar life have you spent a ton of money and then it's like, okay, that's not really what I needed, or I don't really, like 2 weeks later, I don't really care about an interface anymore. So I just wanted to get something like $200 wasn't bad, get into it and, that and a set of headphones and, kind of feel it out and then, figure out if I want to expand later. So that's kind of my way of thinking. But that way of thinking doesn't work when your shit breaks in 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the other important thing about an interface is the latency. And like with RME, the latency is like your human ears won't pick up on it. Like it's
Right.
there, but it's so short that you won't pick up on it.
Yeah,
And
there's not much on this one. So far, I've been pleasantly surprised. It was bad at first, but it was the way I had it set up. I mean, once I figured out what I was doing, it was a lot better because it was throwing me off. I mean, it was like you were hearing two different sounds at two different times.
yeah, that's the worst. You can't even do anything with that.
Yeah. All right, so what do you have next on your agenda? Didn't you have a guitar last week you wanted to show?
I was thinking when we were talking last week, if I was coming back, I had a couple of new pieces of gear that I was, happy about. So let me see what I got here. You guys can kind of, I may have to grab this camera. Is that okay?
Yeah. Everything's okay. We can do whatever we want.
So I've got.
Oh, wow.
You can see that Mesa Boogie on the bottom.
Uh-huh.
So that's we tore that thing apart because it needed to be repaired after I bought it. It's from 1989. That is a Mesa Boogie 50 caliber, and I love Mesa Boogie. And one of the things that I thought would be a cool thing to talk about, and I've got some of the guys around here are videographers that do stuff for us. Talked into hopefully doing a video at one point comparing that amp against a probably a Mesa Mark amp, and then also I talked about this last week. There's this guy that has been gaining popularity for making clones of popular amps.
Right.
And he's got a clone out there of a Mark II C+, which is the amp that's used on Master of Puppets and Justice for All, and I believe the Black Album, and probably mixed in with different things that Metallica has done since. But that amp's been made famous by Metallica. Right. So he makes a clone of those, and then it's also you can flip a switch on the back and it turns into a Mark III. So I ordered one of those, and that's coming hopefully soon. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of do a comparison of those different three amps, and that's like a super nerdy thing.
So you're going to come back on here and do that comparison?
Yeah, or at least talk about it. Maybe make a video, share it with you guys, and then talk about it afterwards. Because I mean, a Mark II C+, you're talking about $10,000 because they don't make them anymore. They make them. You can, if you buy a Mesa Mark amp, there's a setting on there that you can switch it to, and I bet you get pretty dang close. But it's still not the real thing. So yeah, I just want to see how close it is. There's a guy that lives close to me, Motor City Guitars. A lot of musicians, when they go on tour in this area, they'll go hit that store. It's it's not a chain store or anything like that, but one of the guys that works there, his name's Jared, and he's got a channel on YouTube, and he tests a lot of stuff. And he talks super nerdy like I talk, about all this stuff. And he has actually got this amp. It's called the manufacturer is Crab Amps, I guess, which is a weird name, but
Crab Amps.
Yeah, and the amp is called the Marcus, which is kind of an offshoot of the Mark series amp. So yeah, and then he's got a ton of different clones of pedals and different mainstream amps that are out there that are a lot cheaper than what you can get if you wanted to buy one. I mean, like for that new Mesa Mark II-C Plus that they just put out, like the rebranding of it, that's $3,500, you know.
Wow.
And I bought the clone of that for less than $1,000, and it's a 100-watt amp.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
Now, then you start to get into, well, can it hold up, and does it have longevity to it? You know, which I think Mesa amps are super, super reliable. I haven't ever had an issue with that, knock on wood. You know, I have had issues with the EVH Stealth that I had problems with that. You know,
don't tell me this, man. I'll be the guy.
It would randomly switch, turn off my effects loop or switch channels, and I'd be like, "What the hell's going on?" Yeah, and I was the original owner. So,
oh, geez. What did? Oh, he said you're not getting that amp. No, I think I'm good on amps right now.
unless he means I'm not getting the one, because it's a Ukraine guy that makes it. So I don't know. Maybe I never will see it.
You never know. You never can tell. All right, what do you have next? I have some stuff if you want.
Yeah.
If you want to just talk about random because you know me, I have my random topics every week.
I'm having a great time. So let's keep talking.
Yeah, so I mean, I have. You're off work tomorrow. I'm off work every day. I just have to.
Yeah.
Oh, he said you're not buying that amp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my buddy Joe likened the price of new amps to something that I thought was really funny. He's like, you know, a used car used to cost $3,500, and it used to be a halfway decent used car. Like when amps rise to the price of that, it's like, you know, the used market is awesome.
Yes.
You can get awesome used gear, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like you need to be a little bit careful because there are scammers out there. But you need to know what to look for. And you know, yeah, I would go more towards that.
I don't know, and we'll here in a second we'll talk about some of these. Like I've said it before, you know, I'm born and raised in Maryland, and big PRS fan, and you know, he used to work at, you know, Chuck Levin's. I lived not far from Chuck Levin's back in the day growing up, but you know, where their prices, and I'll talk about one of it. We're going to talk about the 40th anniversary McCarty, and they've just priced me out of being a PRS fan. Like, and even that one that I talked about, that 1987 that I got, which I've been playing it a lot. I like it. But I've got to tell you, man, I don't, so it could be a couple things. So it's not in my mind where, I mean, that's a $1,200 guitar. In my mind, it's not where the quality of a $1,200 guitar should be. And the last one I bought was at Reverend, and that was a 14. Now, of course, I got them on sale. I mean, I didn't pay that for them because they were having big sales during both times. And that Reverend was a $1,400 guitar, and it just doesn't, in my mind, feel like where they should be. I think the prices are crazy. Now, I think there's a difference in the LTD, and that's the first LTD I've ever bought. There's a difference in that, in the ones that the last three that Alex has gotten. And I don't know if it's because mine was from Indonesia, it's a different make or a different model, or if they're checking his out. Like when his come in, the frets were good on it. They were all level. The fret ends felt good on it. But I don't know. It just where the prices are. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I don't know why we're buying new guitars, because there's so many used deals out there right now. You know, you could buy a Les Paul Studio now, which I can remember when they were like, and I know people can remember when they were less, but you could pick up the stained version without the finish on it for like $5.99 for a Gibson Les Paul. And I mean, you can't touch an Epiphone for that now. It's insane.
And you know, I really wonder what their costs are too, because are they just making their price go up because that's popular right now? You know, because when you think about a big builder like that, that's got so much throughput in terms of their production, their costs are low. You know, it's not like a builder who's making a couple guitars a month. They're making a shitload of guitars.
Yeah.
You know,
well, if you think about it, that's all we've heard is how the price of guitars and everything is going to go up. How many, and I say this every week, and I think yesterday, for the first time, maybe since COVID, I got one of the Guitar Center 15% offs in the mail. Now I've gotten the online ones that are, I think, offered through the, I have the gear card, the Guitar Center gear card. So I'll get promotions from them, but it's been a while since I've seen some of the sales that are going on out there right now. So it's just odd because I thought it would be opposite. Everything would be, you know, going up dramatically, but it seems like there's a lot of decent deals, not good deals. You know?
Yeah, you know, last week when we talked, you touched on Guitar Center a little bit. One of the things I wanted to tell you guys, so I happen to stop in a Guitar Center, and I don't go anywhere near Guitar Center ever. Like I try to go to the smaller family-owned shops around here if I have to go to a music store. So I went in there the other day because my son was doing something, and I was just going to go, you know, hang out at Guitar Center for a little bit and then go pick him up. And in Detroit, the Guitar Center there was almost 100% used gear. I was amazed at how much used crap they had there, you know. And I said something, I'm like, wow, you guys have got just a ton of used stuff. He's like, yeah, it's kind of like where we've changed, like their business model has completely changed. So I'm not saying that that's the same at every Guitar Center, but that specific one, oh my gosh.
Right. And the Croatian says he goes to, you know what? I know people that do this. I never have luck with that. So I'm glad he brought that up because, you know, one of the topics. So, and what made me think of this. So Taylor guitars, so acoustics, but I'm not going to talk about acoustic guitars, but just for the purpose of this. So they just unveiled their replica of a 314C, which I guess is used. I don't watch this. It's an HBO series, The Last of Us. I've never even heard of it. It's I guess a guitar they use on that mini series, that show, whatever it is. So that made me think of something. And I'll tell you I want to hear other people's first, but and then I'll tell you mine. So here's the reason I asked this. So what is the best guitar that you bought and you were able to flip and make money on?
Oh man, I have to think about this. I bought an ESP Eclipse. Actually, I think I might have got it in a trade or something. It was an ESP Eclipse, and it was like I got it for like something stupid for an Eclipse. It was like the equivalent of $1,100 or $1,200, I think. You know, and like those are a little bit more. They're not that much more, but they're still a little bit more than that. And then I ended up trading that for. Let's see if I can show you. You see the Explorer back there?
Yeah. Okay.
I traded it for that. I've modified that thing heavily since I got it. But I traded it for that. That's a early 2000s, just because you and I went into the Gibson discussion on the first time I was on here. And I would, if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that too. But I still like Gibson. You know,
I do too. So. I love Gibson. I get pissed off at them because I think they could do better.
Yeah.
So,
So
I think it's because I expect more. It's Gibson. I grew up on Gibson. We all grew up on Gibson, when we're kids, that's the first thing we see. And, with a lot of, but I think they can just do better. And what started it for me is I had, I may have told this, 2018, which is when they were making junk, and it was Mojave Burst, which turned out to be probably one of the ugliest guitars. And it was a standard, and there were file marks all in it. It was horrific. And it was making weird noises. And when I called them, they just kind of blew me off. And back then, Gibson, they weren't awesome. In that time frame, 2018, they were like, it's a handmade instrument. All handmade instruments have file marks in the fretboard. I said, my Paul Reed Smith doesn't. My Fender doesn't. Like only this one does. And I mean, I see them all the time. But
man, I
think that's what really got me started.
I want to go back. I thought you had an awesome question, so I want to go back, but I do want to validate what you just said, because I bought a Les Paul. It was a Blood Moon, and it's in the same series as that. You see that black Les Paul back there?
Yep. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yep. So there were file marks on there, and I thought I was crazy.
Yeah, it's on almost all of them if you look close enough.
Yeah,
almost all.
Well, I was like, if I'm spending this kind of money on a guitar, I want to be the one to screw it up. I don't want you guys to.
Well, and if it's in the fretboard now, and I do this as my way of just kind of flipping them off in my head, they don't even know I'm doing it. But if a customer's guitar comes in with file marks, I usually sand them out, because it's just in the fretboard. I figure it probably they probably don't care. I care because I'm shallow. That's some of it.
Yeah,
but it shouldn't be there.
Right. That's not shallow. That is awesome attention to detail is what I would call that.
All right. So Necrosian bought an LTD Eclipse himself for $800 and sold it for $1,000.
Heck yeah.
All right. So here, I'll tell you my story. It's a little funny story. I'll make it fast. So, and here's why I thought of it with that being from a movie. So you're thinking like, what a guitar, like why would they make a guitar, that's themed after a movie? So if you remember, I've never watched Stranger Things, but remember about the time where, you played the Metallica song and, that guitar, the crackle finish and all that. So on Black Friday, I think this has been 3 or 4 years ago, I was looking for a cheap guitar because winding pickups, you're always, you wind a set and he knows the story. I think Cody said the Warlock. Yeah. So, when you wind guitars, you pop your, oh, he didn't know about my Warlock. He knows it's from Stranger Things. So, you wind a set, you put them in the guitar, you see how they sound. If they sound good, you put them up for sale, pop them out. So I was looking for something to do that. So I think I was looking at one of those, what is it, Fireflies, whatever, Les Paul style, like a couple $100, and they were even cheaper than that. And I was like, I really don't need anything, just something that will fit a humbucker in it and you can hear it, play a couple, play a couple chords, see how they sound, all that kind of stuff. So a friend of mine said, it's Black Friday. He says, hey, did you see this this guitar? And he sends it to me. And it was the one from the Stranger Things. And it had the back plate on it, the cover that goes on the back of the neck screws. It said Stranger Things on that and had a number and crackle finish and all that. So I see it. My wife and daughter came home from shopping, and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to buy this Firefly guitar. I just need something to pop pickups in. And my daughter looked at that Warlock and she said, wow, that's a cool looking guitar. Get that one. I was like, I mean, all you have to hear is like somebody give you a reason to buy something. I was like, all right, that's cool. It has a Floyd on it. I could just loosen the strings from the end, pop the pickups out. So I left my house, went to Guitar Center Black Friday at night in the evening, and I think I was gone 45 minutes, maybe hour tops. Went down, bought it. I think I got it for $7.99 on sale. And while I was there, it's one of those typical, good Guitar Center stories that I hope they change. They go back and they're looking for the box and everything that it came in. And I said, didn't it come with any documentation? No, it doesn't come from it. I said, you need to look around. So they go to a manager. He comes up. They look it up. Well, not only does the guitar, or did the guitar come with, the documentation, the wrenches and all that kind of stuff, it came with a collector gear bag that matched it. So, and they didn't even, I almost walked out the door without it because the guy told me they didn't have. So I get it. I bring it home, lay it in here, and never even played it. And went to work on Monday, and I Googled it. And people were selling those things for crazy amounts of money because they were tied to that movie. Yeah. And I'm sitting here going, this has got to be wrong. So I threw it up. Well, I told my wife, and she said, do not take the pickups out of that guitar. Don't touch it. Put it for sale. Went on Reverb. I think I made, after all their fees, I think I made $1,200 or $1,300 on it and cleared $1,000. And I told the guy at Guitar Center I did it. They actually got pissed at me. But the whole thing was because they were like, well, we kind of frown on people like buying our guitars at a discount and then flipping them. But that wasn't my intention, and you know what? It was actually a fan of the show that his mom bought it for him. And like jumped right on it as soon as I advertised it, and bought it for her son, who wasn't even a guitar player. He just wanted it as a collector's item. So like, I didn't buy it for that. I bought it legitimately to try pickups out in. But yeah, I think that was the best money-making flip that I had. But it came off of a movie guitar. I thought of that as soon as I saw that goofy guitar made after a TV show.
Yeah, I have nothing to compare to that. That's awesome. And you know what?
I don't get those. I usually lose money.
Man, like for Guitar Center to get mad at you for something like that, it's kind of like, you know what? It's my stuff. You don't get.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that they I don't know. I think they were like, well, that was a cool guitar, and we thought that somebody was buying it because they only had one. And not only that, I think if I'm not mistaken, they either made, I think there were two levels of this guitar, like quality levels. So one they made 200 of, that they limited it to. Yeah. One they made 2,000, and I had number 50. Like it was number 50 in the bag. So it was, it's just one of those, you don't get those all the time. Cody has something. So expensive for being part of a movie. Yeah. No, I mean, who cares? I mean, as long as, I think the guy that his mom bought it for him, like he was a grown, it wasn't like a parent buying it for their kid. It was like a grown person that was into the movie, big fan and all that. Selling a limited black metal arrow string through. How much do you want to make on that? Is he telling us because he wants to make 1,000 on it? 1,000 profit?
Probably about 1,000. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think that's probably you could sell.
No, he wants to make 1,000. He wants 1,000 profit on it. Why are you selling it? Well, I know somebody, if anybody, I always come up with things because I hear of people selling stuff all the time. I know somebody that's getting rid of a, oh, well, there we go. We have a buyer. Cody, if you're looking, I can put you in touch with him. I know how to get a hold of him. I know somebody selling a Silver Jubilee that looks like brand new. He's trying to get rid of because he has too many amps. What else do I have? I mentioned and I'll try to display this on the screen, the 40th Anniversary McCarty, in case you want to get one. So let me find the screen. I mean, it's pretty affordable, just in case you're interested. There we go.
Pretty affordable.
Yeah, so at one time, like PRSs haven't always been like this. Well, and it's not just PRS, it's all guitars. But there was one time where I had a SC245, all core. My daughter has a Paul Allender PRS. I have a custom 22 that I still have, and I had another one that I picked up here locally. And you could buy those, or I mean, I have one out here right now, a 2006 that's in for service, that's black, single cut like this. That guy was asking $2,000 for that. Came in for a setup, but $49.50 for this guitar. I mean, I know it's a nice guitar, it's beautiful, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't have much experience with PRS guitars. I have tried the PRS Archon, which is a killer amp, and the Mark Tremonti 15-watt amp, which is also an awesome amp. It's just got a ton of low end in it.
Yeah.
I tried the his 100-watt version, and I just tried that at a guitar store on a small cab, so I didn't really feel like that did it justice. But
yeah,
you know, as far as
Cody, he's selling it for $700, and Dwight says he has a Silver Jubilee. They are great amps. And yeah, so I tell you, he found it too. Cody said he found it. So Cody is trouble. He's not. So trouble is Cody. Cody's trouble too. So yeah, one time go and play one of these. They have a different feel to it. I don't know if it's $5,000 worth of feel, but PRSs have. I don't know how to explain it. I always say they have like a tighter feel to them, and I'm talking about the cores. The SEs are good. The S2s are good. The rest of them are good, but the cores have a different feel to them. Let's see. I can't buy two ESP 11.
Can
I think yeah. I don't know what is going on, and these. I tell you what. Another thing is if you want to see, and let me unshare this. Stop sharing. There you go. I went to if you ever want to do a guitar tour of a factory, that PRS is a great factory tour. Good operation, good employees. Like I went in there, and I've never been anywhere, and I've said this on this show before, I've never been to any business, not guitar or anything else, including where I used to work, and have all the employees say, we make the best product, we make the best guitar, we are the best. And every employee said that. So that was, I think, the most interesting thing that I saw was the pride that the employees take in their instruments. And I think it translates. Now, that being said, I mean, $5,000 is a lot for a guitar nowadays, but it seems to be where we're going. I mean, maybe we're going to revisit lower prices. Only other couple. So did you see Nancy Wilson's guitar got stolen in Atlantic City?
That's she's from Hart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were performing at Ocean City. So they did make an arrest in that. It said they made an arrest. And it's funny because I heard it on the radio, and then like 2 hours later I saw they arrested a person, but they didn't say if they recovered the mandolin and the guitar or not. So that makes you, we've kind of mentioned it on here, like what people are taking out on tour when they're performing. And it's like, nowadays there's no code. There's no code for anything, let alone like, you don't mess with people's instruments,
What's it, Alex?
Was it how you saw that? Alex is out shanking guitars.
Mandolins.
Yeah.
I want to bring some new elements into immolation.
Yeah, right. And then the last thing, these are just things that, like I said, I always have things pop up in my feed, and if I find them kind of goofy or interesting, so they're looking for the Back to the Future ES335. Gibson's looking for it.
Oh, wow.
They don't know where it is. Like, I think Gibson, the story is like Gibson loaned it to the movie set for the movie, and all these years later, they can't figure out where it is.
Huh.
So the manhunt is out for the Back to the Future.
Only because they know it's going to be worth a ton of money.
Yes. Can you imagine? Yeah, one day. But yeah, that's all the stuff I have. And Alex, I mean, maybe next weekend we'll talk through the week, and maybe we'll do this again next week.
Yeah,
come up good. With maybe I'll be able to talk my wife into coming on with her goofy. No, that ain't happening.
No, man, bring her on. I think that would be awesome.
I wish she would peek in, because it's funny. She gets such a kick out of it, because there's one, some I can't tell because some I've used on her. I mean, like we've all done, we have little ways that we breadcrumb our way to a new guitar, but sometimes she just laughs and chuckles, and at the end of the day, she says the same thing, like, all these people could be doing way worse with their money, So,
well, and that's very true. And the other thing I think would be cool if you did bring her on is that, does she play an instrument?
No.
So, like, getting questions from someone that doesn't play an instrument in like a forum like this, I think would be awesome, because they would be questions that are probably outside the box.
Right.
Us,
Well, and it's funny because she hears, so she sees almost every customer that comes in here, because like while I'm interacting with them and figuring out what needs to be done, she's kind of writing down and getting the strings, like what string gauge, all that kind of stuff, what tuning. So she knows all the questions to ask. So she can talk guitar fluently.
That's awesome.
But she also picks up on things. She picks up on trends, and these are things that I've made mention a couple of times with like Alex's guitar in particular. If she comes in, and not to say that, I mean, not all guitars like have these snaggletooth frets on them, but most guitars have, some pieces of the fret that are high that can be a problem for the player. So she notices that. So when she comes in, that we do kind of a before and after, like the action was here when we got it, any scratches, dents, things like that. So I know I don't own them. And then, here's the action when you got it back, kind of thing. So that way we get a record of it. And we kind of know what your preferences are when you come back also. So she hears all these, she hears it over and over and over, to where when she comes in and says, like, which high frets, and I write them on a piece of tape back here, and like, she'll say there weren't any high frets on that. And now she even can zero in on, that must be an older guitar, or it must be a this, or it must be a that, because you kind of notice trends at some point. My two guitars that I recently bought, they're pretty bad frets on both of those. Straight edge on those frets. Yeah. And that's that's a lot of it. One day we'll get into, and he said no soup for you back there. Yeah. One day we'll have to do a show about, we always say, Alex and I want to do some repair stuff, like working on guitars and things like that. The problem with doing that is, for one, like, everybody needs their stuff in a timely manner, so that slows you down. The whole like recording, moving cameras around, getting lighting and all that kind of stuff just slows the process down and makes the job last longer, and people are needing to get their things back. And sometimes just getting the camera angles is hard. Like, well, let me do this soldering now, but let me set up 3 cameras first. So, but we want to do more of that. He wants to do more playing, playing guitars and trying things out, and, different ideas, different rigs and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that would be some of those topics you just talked about. Like, if you want to do more discussion about repairs and stuff like that, you should have my buddy Joe on, because he had a luthier business, and he works on all my guitars, and he's a great guy. Yeah. He was actually in Ashes for a minute too.
Right.
but he would be able to talk about all that stuff a lot better than I do.
Well, did he do it full time?
I think there was a time where he was doing it.
I gotta tell you, I don't know how people, and I'll qualify this at the end. I don't know how people can make a living wage unless you're a guitar tech with a big band out there or a big company. I mean, I hear people all the time say like, "Hey, how do I do this?" It's like, man, don't have.
Yeah.
So I'll qualify it. I have a good retirement, so
Yep.
you can do this because there's not a lot of money in it.
Well,
And some of that, I'm my own worst enemy too, because I know that the bands aren't making a lot of money either. So,
well, I mean, that's awesome that you do that, though. I mean, like seriously, I don't have you haven't worked on any of my guitars, but I can tell you right now, I 100% appreciate that, and
right,
that's incredible that you do that, and a lot of kind of like what you're talking about. It is also a big thing too, like to pursue music. I mean, that could be a show in and of itself.
oh yeah,
It's what
yeah,
it takes to do that. I mean, man, it is so much more than just I want to go play music. Like there
right,
is so many different disciplines that come into that,
right,
just to scratch the surface. And
right.
even if you hit a lot of that stuff, man, I don't know. Sometimes it just comes down to just freaking timing and luck.
Well, and do you? So that this can be, you know, guitar makes money on. Yeah, I think they do make money on the road. I know a guitar. Yeah, they probably do. Like those guys are making money, but I think like small business, it seems like when you're a small business, like somebody always has their hand in your pocket to get money. Not unlike bands, like somebody they got their hands in their pocket trying to get a piece of their merch and all that. But like with us, prices are going up. The competition is, I I think that's the biggest, like coming out of the fire department, and I know I don't talk about it much, but that's kind of a, like it or not, it's kind of a team environment. Like everybody has to succeed if you're going to get the mission accomplished. Same with military and all that. So I think when I opened up this business, I kind of had oh, this is going to be cool. Like I'm part of the team, part of the guitar repair team, part of the performing team, but it is very, very competitive. Like guys don't like to share secrets. I'm kind of an open book. It's like, hey, I mean, whatever. Like it's like you to have a good performance, you have to have a good guitar. To have a good guitar, you have to have a good guitar tech. But the other thing is like and this is kind of where I was going at the beginning, is like I think you can be too diversified too, right? So you can get in too many rabbit holes. Maybe diversified could be a bad example of a word to use for that, but like you can be into too many things. Like I found that my playing probably suffers because I'm working on guitars more. So you're not playing as much. And it's almost like I equate that to the mechanic that doesn't change his own oil. I
Yeah.
say I never change my own strings. Yeah, I always had the funkiest strings, the worst quality strings, because I put the good stuff on everybody else's guitars. But I think the same is like, there's a lot of people that tinker with tone and gear and all that rather than just playing. And the same with me. Like I think everybody has their place, but you kind of can't do it all. Maybe some people can. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like that is really true, though. You still have to know your instrument and be able to play it.
Yeah,
There is absolutely, that said, there is an overlap, though. Like,
sure.
that's where it comes down to. You can have awesome songs, awesome playing, but if your production is awful, no one's going to listen to it. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
And that's where stuff like tone and all this other crap that we're covering down on, comes
Yeah.
into play. So
Yeah. Yeah. And Necrosian said perfection. So that's all the topics I have. Necrosian, are we done? And usually he calls it for us. He tells us when we're done. So I think we got a lot covered tonight. It was a good show, man. I had a good time.
Definitely. Yeah.
So what I will say, and you may have noticed this last week, it's like sometimes the Crocia said, I guess. So it's sometimes when we get in this setting, people aren't as chatty, and then as soon as there we go, he said killer show. I know we're done when he says killer show. He means, all right, guys, I've had enough. But yeah, I think this has been good. Like what I was saying is last week, like as soon as I hit the button, everybody got chatty. I was like, wait a minute. And that happens. That happens a lot. Everybody gets chatty afterwards. It's like we needed to be chatting when the podcast was going on. But yeah, these are good topics, man. We need to figure out what if we're gonna do one next week. It'll be on Instagram and Facebook. And then I'm not sure. I think Alex has gone 2.5 weeks, so I'm not sure if he'll be back on the following week or not. So, but we'll see. And Dwight, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure. And everybody like and subscribe. And we appreciate you joining us tonight. Have a good weekend.
And can I just say thank you real quick? Because
Oh, absolutely. And thank you. Thank you. We're still on. So thank you. I appreciate you setting in.
Appreciate the opportunity, man. I just super happy to be on here and to be able to talk about this stuff. And thank you to Alex for suggesting that I do this, and to you as well. So I had a great time. It was awesome.
Yeah, and hopefully Alex is having an equally great time on the stage.
Yep.
So, all right, everybody, take care. Thanks again.